Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com. Joined once again by Zane Simon for the sixth
Shit.
round post
I
fight
just
show.
I gave people the wrong link.
Uh oh.
Fuck. Oh, we need to start booting people.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
Eject. Yeah, I'll eject. Eject. So,
Fucking
Simon. Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Uh,
So they're going to keep popping back in throughout
I
the
know.
show. Delete the tweet. So, apologies about the complete and utter incompetence of my
God damn
half-witted
it.
sidekick, Zane.
What the hell did I just do?
Anyway, yes, it's been that kind of night. Chris Cyborg just mauled Lena Lansberg, and we're gonna have random freaks coming in.
I know. What the fuck?
Is there any way to stop that?
I'm deleting the last one.
Yeah.
There we go. Hopefully that'll end stem the tide. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
just have to keep an eye on it. Apologies again. So, Chris Cyborg annihilated Lena Lansberg. 2 minutes, 29 seconds, second round. Lansberg showed nothing. And you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was going to type. Yeah, this is a complete shit show. No, I mean, I was surprised Lansberg made it to round 2.
Yeah, I mean, she showed a lot of toughness, but whenever Joe Rogan is sitting there saying, look at the heart on this gal, she's got a chin made of iron, look at the toughness, you know she's not doing jack. I mean...
Oh, yeah, she didn't... I mean, somebody pointed out that she landed an elbow off a clinch break at the end of round 1, and that is probably the only strike she landed in the whole fight.
Yes, which is... Cyborg's probably pretty pissed about that, but, you know... Hopefully. I mean, my God, that second round opener, when Cyborg backed her up against the cage, Lansberg was trying to move, even tried sticking and moving at one point, but then Cyborg just unleashed a barrage of combinations, just completely unanswered. I mean, what do you do with a problem like Chris Cyborg? She can barely squeeze down to 141 pounds.
I think, well, this is the turning point. The turning point, and the question that now is going to be is, what do the TV ratings look like coming out after this thing? Did Cyborg as a main event blow it up and do big FS1 ratings for them?
No.
Did she push a whole bunch of people? Because if she didn't, then I don't know how much the UFC is going to be able to get anyone to fight her. And if they can't get anyone to fight her, I don't think they care about having her at 145, and they probably send her back to Invicta.
Yep, where she'll do just fine on Fight Pass.
Yeah, it's just, that's the thing. If this is the best fight that they can get for her, I don't think that they care. I think.
But if they can get Ronda Rousey, then they have a huge payday, potentially.
Or Ronda Rousey, or Holly Holm, or even Kat Zingano, or like anybody in the top 5, any recognizable bantamweight. If they can lure those fighters into these fights, they have something that they can, push on a pay-per-view, even if it's not the main event. It's it's something that they can really sell. And without, yeah.
I don't think that needs to happen at 135 pounds. I mean, do you care if it's at 135?
No, and the fights wouldn't be at 135.
Yeah.
They'd be at 140.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they should just go ahead and make those fights. I don't even know why they booked this fight in the first place.
Because I don't think anybody's taking them. I don't think these, the UFC's not working. Maybe the UFC's not working hard enough to get these people to take them. They're not. Like, if you're making 20 and 20, you're going to go up and potentially get yourself cut by fighting Chris Cyborg?
They need to pay. They need to pay the money, because I think it'll draw. I think if they get Cyborg...
Well, and that's what the question... I think that's what they're trying to find out, is will Cyborg draw? If she doesn't draw, then they're not going to pay the extra money to have somebody fight her.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, although I think the premise is faulty, because seeing Cyborg annihilate somebody we know and have some feels for is very different than seeing Cyborg annihilate random nobody.
Yeah, but it fits the UFC's classic way of promoting talent, which is they don't put any force behind somebody who hasn't already proved that they can do something with nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's very similar to other corporate management I could name, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so I mean, basically we learned nothing tonight. We had Cyborg annihilate somebody we knew she was going to annihilate. We had Renan Barao edge Philippe Novaire, unanimous decision in a fight. I mean, he really needed a dramatic win there.
I the thing is, I don't. I mean, I when I saw that fight, I was like, okay, that's going to be a boring 3-round decision that Barao wins without any problems.
And that's
Because
pretty much what it was.
yeah, because Barao, I mean, for as exciting as he can be and has been in the past, he's also very willing to just kick Uriah Faber apart for 5 rounds or pick somebody off. And Nova's, when he doesn't have an advantage, when he doesn't feel like he can out wrestle you, when he doesn't feel like he can out grapple you, when he doesn't feel like he can out strike you, he just hangs back and plays a safety first style. Says, okay, I'm not going to get KO'd. I'm just going to walk through and try not to lose this fight horribly. And he gives away rounds.
Yep. Although he did win a round on 2 of the judges' cards, so
Yeah, that was bullshit. I mean, he didn't win any of those rounds.
No. Barao edged him. He didn't dominate. He just edged him, but he clearly edged him. I mean, he had all the points in every round, multiple takedowns. And it's good to get back on the winning track. I mean, this is a guy who basically has only beat Mitch Gagnon since he lost the title. I mean, losing to Jeremy Stevens, he needed a tune-up fight. He needed, something to get back on track, and this does that. Although, I'm not excited to see him. I mean, now that he's at featherweight, I'm not excited to see him against Conor McGregor or anything. I don't see him fighting Jose Aldo. What do you do with Barao from here?
They're just going to have to. He's just going to end up being card filler until he can turn something around. And the problem, I think, really ends up being, I mean, Barao may be a bit, the TJ Dillashaw losses may have faded him. They may have exposed what's already a fighter with a ton of mileage on him already. And it is also just the fact that Barao, I think at bantamweight, what really set him apart was the fact that he was more powerful than everyone while still being nearly as fast or as fast.
Yeah.
And at featherweight, he's fast. He's not really fast. It's not a blinding speed, but he's not more powerful than anyone. So suddenly, he can't, when he takes somebody down, he can't control them easily. He doesn't have the size to outmuscle them on the ground. When it comes to a matter of going strike for strike with somebody, he doesn't have a big power edge. They hit just as hard as he does. So he has to just rely on the technique, and the technical side of his game was never the bread and butter side. As a striker.
Yeah, his technique as a striker was always, it wasn't rudimentary, but it was very straightforward. It was leg kicks and hooks. And
he would kick you in the legs until you had to pressure him. And the moment you pressured him, he would charge with up behind a whole stream of strikes and try to clip you. And then he'd back out and go back to leg kicking until you charged him. And that was the way he fought.
Yep, and we'll see how it does at featherweight. And then in the third fight down the card, Roy Nelson stopped Antonio Bigfoot Silva, knockout, second round, 4 minutes, 10 seconds. Nelson kicked referee Big John McCarthy after a slow stoppage. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was this was just a sad fight all the way across. Nelson looks faded. I mean, somebody tweeted, like, if Nelson isn't KOing dudes, then what is Roy Nelson doing anymore?
Yes.
And he and Antonio Silva are good friends, like really good friends, and so I think it was just one of those things where Nelson, always being kind of a loose cannon and being in there with a really good friend of his, faded a bit, not putting on the best performance ever. And then I didn't even feel like the stoppage was that slow, but it was a little bit slow against a guy that we know the moment he's getting dropped, he's pretty much going out.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, when Bigfoot hits the ground, there's just so much momentum behind his body dropping. The head trauma from that alone is brutal. And Silva's he's been falling from a stiff breeze lately. It was amazing he made it to the second round with Roy, and I think that says more about Roy's reduced ability to find his range and timing. I mean, than anything else.
A lack of speed too. He used to have surprising hand speed, and with the hand speed going, you no longer get that shocking power because a lot of what knocks you out is that you don't see the punch coming, you don't expect it, you weren't braced for it. So if you're a little slower, people see it, they can brace for it. Doesn't have that surprise behind it, and we're seeing the difference.
Yep. So, another fight that basically gets us nowhere. I mean, it filled this card, and that was that. Then you had a lightweight Francisco Trinaldo stop Paul Felder, third round, TKO, 2 minutes, 25 seconds. Pretty dominant performance from Trinaldo. I mean,
yeah, he looks good. I mean, it's shocking at his age how well he's been able to craft a complete martial art MMA game. Like, he came in and he looked like this super clunky kickboxer with this power wrestling game without much technique and a power grappling game without much technique, getting, subbed out by Piotr Hallman and, and losing to Gleison Tebow and Michael Chiesa. And it just seemed like, okay, he's like, when he's way bigger than somebody, he'll beat him. And when he's not way bigger than somebody, he'll struggle. And he's refined his kickboxing a ton to make himself a really crafty vet who just knows how to win rounds.
Yeah, and he's won 7 straight UFC fights. I mean, most of those, 5 of those have been by decision, but 2 of those by TKO. And he just utterly dominated Felder. And Felder, he came in with that spinning back fist KO, and I think got a lot of people a bit too hyped about him. I mean, he's one of the few people that Eugene Robinson's has transferred from don't care to care in forever, and a name that Eugene can actually remember. But I don't think this guy's going anywhere at this point. And Trinaldo looks really sharp. I mean, you've written him off because he's older, and that's a perfectly rational thing to do. But for me, this was one of the best performances on the card tonight, and one of the few things that has some meaning because the guy with the 7-fight win streak starting to look like a contender.
Yeah, I mean, he at least deserves to be a ranked lightweight at this point, or to fight one. And it's an interesting thing with Felder because he's still early in his career. That's the weird thing. Like, he only started fighting basically early 2012 is when he started fighting. His first fight was December of 2011. So it's only, 4 years in for Paul Felder. And yet he keeps getting thrown in against borderline top 15 lightweights, and the technical depth isn't there. He's not the right kind of fighter to win those fights, even though he's a good athlete, even though he has power, even though he has some slick techniques. He tends to be a low volume, sit out at range, try to throw that big, exciting one strike. And guys that have gotten as far as Trinaldo have, they know how to shut that down. Yeah, Trinaldo was either way outside or all the way inside, and Felder never had a chance.
Nope, he didn't. And so, who would you like to see against Trinaldo?
He's got the loss to Chiesa, which Chiesa is one of the few unbooked top lightweights. I also know, Iaquinta is off this card coming up here.
Although it doesn't look like he's going to be signing any paper with the UFC anytime soon. So
yeah, you know what might make sense, honestly? Gilbert Melendez.
That could be interesting, although Melendez is probably going to want to hold out for somebody with more of a name.
Yeah, Melendez will probably hold out, even though he's down to 12. So probably the best fight would be Evan Dunham. That would be the most gettable fight for Trinaldo.
Definitely. Dunham is not picking and choosing his fights. And Trinaldo, I think he dismantles Dunham.
It'll be tough because Dunham's another dude that people wrote off pretty early and who's turned himself into a real crafty vet. I mean, he's good everywhere like Trinaldo. The big difference being that Trinaldo's a better athlete, and Dunham may continually find his ceiling below the top 15. Because like we saw in that fight he had against Rick Glenn, he was beating the pants off Rick Glenn, but Rick Glenn still stayed in that fight because Dunham he can't put it on somebody that hard. He doesn't hit that hard. His
Nope.
cardio
Nope.
is not that great. He has to work so hard to get things done that he fades.
Yep. Yep. Then we had middleweight Eric Spicely upset Thiago Santos. Submission
Man.
rear naked choke, 2 minutes 58 seconds of the first round. Pleasant surprise from Spicely.
Yeah, that shit was crazy. I did not expect that at all. That's heavyweight madness at middleweight, and it's the continued chronicles of trying to find a new Brazilian star fighter and having that just go horribly awry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Santos was not supposed to lose that fight. Spicely's not somebody they've got big plans for, and 2 losses in a row for Santos. And I'm not a believer in Thiago Santos. This guy, not somebody that ever really had me going. I mean, he knocked out Nate Marquardt, but I thought Gegard Mousasi pretty much showed what his limitations are, and then Eric getting upset by Eric Spicely. I mean,
That's bad.
Yeah, just
It's
not.
just bad.
Yeah, yeah. Spicely was imported to Brazil not to win that fight, and yeah, not a good
And
night.
Santos is at the point too where like everything should be clicking for him. You know, he's 32. He's not young. He's been fighting. Also since he's been fighting since 2011. It's been 5 years that he's had to pick up the game. Like he should be about to be an elite fighter if he's going to be one. And when you're at that level, you're not supposed to be losing to Eric Spicely.
No, no, you're not. So back to the drawing board for Santos. Then you had Godofredo Pepey, featherweight, submit Mike Delatorre, minute 3:03. Just a god awful wild crazy brawl, fun stuff.
Oh, I love that fight. I knew that fight on paper was going to be that kind of bananas. It's just Delatorre has that absolute "you're not going to hit me, I'm going to hit you" attitude to him, and Pepe he doesn't even have that check. It's not even like "you're not going to hit me, I'm going to hit you." It's "you can do whatever you want to me, but at some point I'm going to knock you out or submit you."
Yeah.
And it was a perfect style matchup for just a wacky inflatable tube-man style of fight.
And that's what we got, and Pepe came out on top, so good for him. I don't see him going anywhere except more action fights.
Yeah, the thing is though is that he's got a great combination for being a high-level action fighter, which is that he's reasonably durable, not incredibly durable, but durable enough. And while he's completely wild and not has no defense at all, his offensive grappling isn't just hyper aggressive, it's really technically slick. So he can throw complete caution to the wind, charging after you with all sorts of wild crap. And if you take him down, if you say, okay, I don't want any of this guy standing up because he's just going to wing whatever part of his body is free at me, then he'll out-grapple you, or he'll work really hard to submit you, and he's really dangerous. So I'm not saying he's ever going to be any kind of title contender or anything like that, but he could easily be a top 15 gatekeeper kind of guy.
So what would you think of him fighting the Korean Superboy Doo-Ho Choi?
Man, that'd be a bananas fight. That would be really fun because Superboy, I mean, he's going to give Superboy every chance to just wreck his world, but Doo-Ho Choi is not. He's very willing to give up bad positions on the ground. His wrestling is not good, and he depends a lot on his scrambling ability, and that would be a great test for him.
Yeah, I like that fight a lot. All right, then on the prelim card, you had a catchweight fight, 158 pounds. Michael Brazeras just shut down Gilbert Burns, got a unanimous decision. Again, Burns is the guy I think that wanted to win that fight, and just showed he's got some limitations. Brazeras is very strong and hard to take down, and Burns just couldn't establish a striking game against him and couldn't set up the takedown, couldn't get a submission, and lost a decision.
Yeah, I mean, Brazeras is kind of rocking that Masarunduba thing where he's secretly getting better in ways that you don't expect, while also not being a great finisher. Like, his cardio has looked better, weirdly, for a guy who's just built like a fire plug.
Yeah, a guy I keep expecting to fail a drug test.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem that way. Did he already? I feel like he may have already. I don't want to slander anyone, but
No, we don't want to slander anyone because that's against the law. So
But
yes.
like it's just one of, I don't
No, I
know.
don't see any PED busts on his record.
Okay. Yeah, never mind. Never mind me. But anyway, Prazeres, he's got a really slick game that's based power takedowns, big power strikes, and aggressive grappling. And he's refining it a little. And Burns refuses to be just a grappler. He really wants to be a good striker. And that's going to be tough to learn in the lightweight division. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of very quick, very skilled guys at that
and
division.
even just guys like Prazeres who are fundamentally basic, but really sound and consistent in that basicness. Like,
And powerful.
yeah.
I mean, Burns had no chance of physically overpowering Prazeres, so he was going to have to do something really slick or do something that set up a chain of offensive attacks that would catch Prazeres or wear him down. But he had nothing. He just had nothing for Prazeres. So I think this is a good wake-up call for Burns. I definitely don't think it's too late for Burns, but I think he needs to retool and rethink what he's doing and still might make a bit of a run out of a UFC career.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. He hasn't been fighting that long. He's only been around. He's only been around since 2012, but he is already 30. So it's a good second loss. He's had this one and the Rashid Magomedov one, which was just such an obviously terrible style matchup for him.
Yeah, he wasn't going to be.
So this is a good wake up. I think this is the fight that's just like you got to be able to win this because guys like Prazeres are all over the place at lightweight.
Yeah, they're just sitting there like big rocks in the channel, ready to take your canoe out. Then you had bantamweight Yahya utterly dominate Michinori Tanaka, unanimous decision. Tanaka won one round on all three judges' cards, but basically was under pressure, under attack from the excellent grappling of Yahya the whole fight.
Yeah, Tanaka couldn't stop himself from throwing himself into the clinch. He just every time he wanted to punch, he had to walk right into Yahya's arms, and he then couldn't stop himself from scrambling with Yahya, and Yahya got the better of all the scrambles for the first 2 rounds. So by the time Yahya was getting tired, Tanaka had to finish, and Tanaka's not a great finisher.
Yeah, no, and I could just imagine what was going through the heads of his corner in the third round when he went for the takedown. It's just like, what are you doing? You're never going to get a decision here. You're down 2-0. You've got to get the finish, take it to the ground. Anyway, good performance from Yahya, although I still don't see him really going anywhere in the bantamweight division at this point.
He's racking up those John Fitch wins where he's winning, and you can just tell that Sean Shelby's like, man, I don't want to book this guy for a big fight.
Absolutely. And I mean, the only way you would want to do that is if you had somebody who was really powerful and really fast that was just knocking people's heads off. You want to give him a showcase win.
Yeah, you put Yahya against John Lineker or something.
Yeah, and just solve your Yahya problem right there. But and if that doesn't happen, Yahya can just chew up people at the bottom ranks of the bantamweight division. I mean,
yeah, he's really tough, and he's even though he doesn't have a great gas tank, he's really consistent with how he presses the fight, and like being tough and consistent and a good grappler means you're not going to get submitted, and you're going to wear people out. You're going to hang around. You're going to pick up rounds.
Yep, and that's what he was doing. Then in flyweight, you had Juicy Fumaga dominate Dustin Ortiz, unanimous decision. Pretty good performance. I mean, what can you say? He dominated the ground game pretty utterly. Ortiz had a moment or two early on, got a reversal, but pretty much got taken down and dominated the whole fight.
Yeah, Ortiz just kind of seems to be sputtering out. I mean, he looks a lot like the prospect he looked like back when he lost to Ian McCall for the Tachi Palace title in like 2011.
Yeah.
It's still kind of like, where's your boxing? Where's, are you ever going to be a really dominating wrestler or a really dominating grappler or a really dominating striker? Because,
No.
Juicy Silva is going to go out and get his ass handed to him by Mighty Mouse at some point down the line. And that's, there's still going to be a gulf between Dustin Ortiz and Jussier Silva.
Yeah, yep, yep. And after losing to Henry Cejudo, I think De Silva has a little bit to go before he gets that title shot. But yeah, Dustin Ortiz, not even quite a gatekeeper to me at flyweight, but a tough challenge. I mean, he can beat a lot of guys, but he's not making any headway against the upper tier of the division.
Yeah, I think he's an established gatekeeper, and that he will never get finished by the best fighters in the division, but he can't beat them. So
yeah, that's fair.
He'll beat the guys that are borderline. He beat Justin Scoggins. He beat Ray Borg. But you put him in against an elite top-level fighter, and he'll compete, but he's just not getting over that hump.
Nope. Then you had welterweight Erick Silva beat Luan Chagas, rear naked choke submission, third round, 357. This was a fun fight. This was a very fun fight. Both guys hurt each other many times.
It was an incredibly fun, very stupid fight, and Erick Silva picked up the first win outside of round one in the last 6 years for him.
Yep. He looked like a very different fighter, like he was thinking rather than just acting.
I don't know, even if that. I mean, the thing is, if he'd lost to Luan Chagas, that would have been the worst loss of Erick Silva's career.
Yes.
Like, Erick Silva has lost a lot in the UFC, but never to a fighter that green, never to a fighter that raw, who had that few consistent tools in his arsenal. Even, I mean, Silva's loss to Nordine Taleb was the worst loss of his career, and this would have been a step down from that.
Yeah, that was in his last fight, and so he desperately needed this, and he
almost lost.
Yeah, and he almost lost. Chagas is somebody I'm looking forward to seeing again. He's got some weapons and is quite athletic. And I'm glad to see Silva stop the slide, and maybe he can retool and refigure. But honestly, Silva's one of those guys. He had flashes of brilliance. He got a lot of people excited, and he hit a really bad spot in his career. Yamasaki stopped a fight that Silva won one of the first times somebody got disqualified for shots to the back of the neck, and he never recovered from that. He's just, ever since then, he's been incredibly erratic and sputtered and lost to, he's gotten some good wins. He beat Josh Koscheck, but a diminished Josh Koscheck, but pretty much anybody who's anybody beats him.
Yeah, I mean, it's the unfortunate thing, too, of looking like such a bright young prospect when the legit peak of his career was probably that Prater to Jason High stretch. Like, that was probably what was very rightfully supposed to be the best years of his career, and everything since then has been a slow slide, and it's a pretty normal one.
Yep. So, that's reality. Sorry, life sucks. All right, then you had 3 fights on the Fight Pass card. Lightweight, Alan Patrick beat Stevie Ray, unanimous decision. I don't even have any memory of this fight at this point. Do you?
Yeah, I do, because I like Stevie Ray, and he looked like he had no idea what to expect out of Alan Patrick. Like, he hadn't trained a day for him, and Alan Patrick just grappled him for 3 rounds.
Yes, this is the Scottish kid. I remember this fight now at this point. And Ray actually had a moment there at first where he was threatening with an armbar, and then couldn't do anything else.
Patrick's fight IQ is notably bad, and Ray still just had no idea how to reverse anything or stay on his feet, and just got shocked by Patrick every time right out of the first, start of every round. Patrick just bum rushed him, and Ray just looked totally shocked by it every time.
Yep. And then you had welterweight Vicente Luque annihilate Hector Urbina. First round, 1 minute. Some sweet combinations were hurled out, and Urbina caught them all with his head.
Yes, Urbina's not a very good fighter.
No. And so be interested in seeing Luque again, see if there's anything more of that. And then an opener, lightweight Gregor Gillespie defeated Glauco Franca. Unanimous decision. Thoughts on that one?
I was impressed. I mean, Gillespie was giving up, serious size to Franca there, and I really did. I thought that it would be a big problem for Gillespie, and it looked like it might be early. He got hurt.
And I think the fight bookers thought the same thing. I mean,
yeah, and he got hurt a few times early. He looks like he's a natural featherweight, but he's so tenacious and such a good technical wrestler that he can make a lot of things happen in that division as he keeps going.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see that. But back to the main event, Chris Cyborg annihilates Lansberg, and basically it's up to the fans. Did enough people watch this? Is there going to be some buzz? The UFC, after years of crapping on Chris Cyborg and trying to protect Ronda Rousey from her, and now they've got no Rousey, so they're suddenly open to the Chris Cyborg business. And I personally, it never made any sense to me why they were so irrationally protecting Cyborg from Rousey. I mean, Rousey from Cyborg. It's like, build the fight. Like, it's like they thought Ronda Rousey was never going to lose or something if they could just keep her away from Chris Cyborg, and that was not the case.
Yeah, and it's really too bad because even if you couldn't build a great division at 145, like they had the rights to Cyborg's contract for like a year before they brought her into the UFC, and they were letting her headline Invicta cards again with these kind of fights, and so you had all that time to do this same experiment that you're doing now, and to try and get something better out of it. Yeah. And it does feel like a little bit like they're trying to play catch up with it. And I don't know. I hope for Cyborg's sake that they keep with it, that they find a way to make it work, that they find a way to balance it out. But I think the moment she's not willing to keep fighting at 140, the UFC's not interested anymore. And if they can't get anyone with a name to fight her at 140, they may not be interested anymore either.
Yeah, and that's too bad. It's a huge missed opportunity. And I mean, looking at what's coming up this fall and winter in the UFC, it's basically if they can get Conor McGregor signed to fight somebody, they've got something. Otherwise, I mean, we've got Tyron Woodley and Wonderboy Thompson at Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's a fun fight. That's an important fight. But that's not a Madison Square Garden headlining first time in New York fight. I mean, it's just not.
No. It isn't. It feels a bit like UFC 200, where it's like, okay, overall, the event feels important and interesting, but UFC 202 blew it out of the water.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, it's a power struggle between the UFC and Conor McGregor, and I don't feel like the UFC's making smart moves. I mean, a year ago, 2 years ago, they had McGregor and Ronda Rousey, and they've lost Ronda Rousey. They've lost the whole women's 135-pound division in terms of a marquee draw. They got Conor McGregor, and there are some tensions there in the business relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see going forward because at least the word on the street, the rumors always were that the tie that made Conor McGregor and the UFC run super smoothly was McGregor and the Fertittas, and that he never got along that well with Dana White.
Nope.
And now it's all White's left, and the Fertittas are gone. White's there, and the Fertittas are gone. And so, how does that play out? Does every fight go through a big negotiating process to happen? The thing is, I don't think Conor McGregor wants to sit on the sidelines and play that waiting game. He's not the Diaz brothers. I don't think he wants to sit out for a year or two.
No, definitely not. I think he's hot and he wants to make money and he wants to win fights and he loves the attention and the excitement and everything else. So hopefully they can work it out. But next week we've got UFC Fight Night Lineker versus Dodson. I mean, they're headlining fight cards with bantamweight contender matches. I mean, it's a fun fight, but it's not.
Yeah, this is a big run of weird cards for the UFC. I think we're finally starting to see the fallout of this whole push to recreate stars and to find star potential, where you now have these huge events that hinge on stars. Everything else doesn't sell nearly the way a UFC pay-per-view used to.
No, yeah, they've cannibalized the hardcore audience. I mean, it's
but they've found it. I mean, they've found some semblance. They found a bigger casual audience than ever before. So it almost doesn't matter that they've cannibalized the hardcore audience. But you have these massive pay-per-view cards. You have the other pay-per-view cards where every good fighter that nobody cares about goes. And then you have these. It seems more and more that the Fox Sports 1 cards are just turning into, okay, let's just get everybody else fights.
Yeah, they're just churning it out because anything that they put on Fox Sports 1 is going to be better ratings than Fox Sports 1 gets otherwise, except for NASCAR. And so, they're just shoveling shit, basically, and not building anything anywhere. You got Dos Anjos versus Tony Ferguson coming up in I think November, but that's the only card I can see coming up that has significance and hardcore grit, but casual fan appeal, nada, zip. And it's
I think they find. I mean, it's sort of a slow honing to a model that actually represents how the UFC has to work, rather than this whole brand first approach that they tried to push for years. They tried to tell everybody that the UFC was the product and that it wasn't the fighters, and it got their credit rating slashed. So
yeah, because they pushed it too much. I mean, they wanted to saturate the market and just sop up any potential marketing opportunity they had. They just ran too many events and burned out the audience. But that's a topic for another time. This was the 6th round for UFC Fight Night 95. Chris Cyborg easily beating Lansberg. We knew it was going to happen, and that's what happened. It wasn't exciting enough, though. It's not like this is going to be on ESPN with the highlights. I mean, it's just like, if you don't know who Chris Cyborg is already, all you see is a bigger chick beating a smaller chick, and not in any especially, super wow.
Yeah, it was at the end of the day, it was a needed reminder to everyone who every few months forgets that Chris Cyborg actually knows how to fight and isn't just big. And it's all like, oh, I think this next chick's going to beat her because you never know. Cyborg, the wheels could be falling off any day. It's like, if you actually watched her fight, like, she's can do a really whole lot of shit.
Yeah, she's an exceptionally skilled athlete. And, I mean, here's hoping. I want to see her fight Miesha Tate. I want to see her fight Holly Holm. I want to see her fight Ronda Rousey. So, cross your fingers, fans. Send your cards and letters to Dana White and Ari Emanuel and see what happens. But anyway, that's our show. Follow us on Twitter, @KidNate, @TheZane'sTime, read us at BloodyElbow.com. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes. Get the audio without the ugly. Eugene will have Knuckle Up tomorrow. We'll be back next week with the Care Don't Care preview and the vivisections for Lineker and Dodson. And adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Zane.